You guys can see my screen, yeah?
Yes.
All right. Don't let any of this confuse you. So anyway, Sha, Moses, what I was trying to say is this is just I will explain all these things with the task sort of, but like this is just like okay, see this as imagine this is text messages, right? This is like a bunch of text
Yeah.
messages you send someone, or a bunch of quotes. This is a quotes app. Like imagine this is a quotes
Okay.
app. There has to have like some library or somewhere that they keep all their quotes, like all the quotes.
Okay. And
Yeah.
you made an array for that.
Yes, an array for that. Then
And
imagine that I
and
instantiated it and did it that maybe admins or maybe users of the app can even put quotes, like can even add their own quotes and it will add. So
okay.
right here, I instantiated the quotes app, the quotes class or whatever, which is here.
Mm-hmm.
And then I'm now accessing a method. There is a method in the quotes class that sends out the message to a user. Like you put a message, you pass a message through it as an argument, and it first of all it pushes that message to the database of the app. Like, okay, this is a message this is a new quote on our app, so we're going to go ahead and keep that as one of our quotes. Then it will now still
Mm-hmm.
log out the quote to the person looking.
Okay.
Is here your message, good morning everyone. Then he pushes that good morning everyone into this place. Imagine what you wrote here is let me use, it's good to be using things more practical. There are no regrets, only lessons. So when you run this, let me close this guy. When you run this stuff, it's going to this guy don't come again. I'm going to go ahead and uh hide floating meeting controls. Yes. So when you play this, you're going to see, do you see your message? Or maybe I should change this to quote just for it to make some sense. Your quote,
Okay.
just for it to make some sense. Because the more you use things that you can relate with in real life. So you see, you passed in a quote. Imagine this thing was wrapped in some, if in some logical statement that has a user actually add it. What quote would you like? Imagine in that to-do list, what would you like to add? What quote would you like to add? You will add this
Mm-hmm.
the same way we had that to-do list that we formed, an array of to-do list, and then when you put an activity,
And
you push it into it.
yeah.
That's the same way we're doing
Yeah.
it. Pushes it, then it now tells you, okay, this is the quote that you pushed in. Your quote, there are no regrets, only lessons. That's what this function does.
Mm-hmm.
Pushes in and shows you what you pushed in. Then this function
Okay.
shows you how many in total are there, like how many quotes we have so far. So
Yes.
when you use this function, remember you still use this guy, this instance of the class. When you use the log count, and when you, okay, someone is trying to join. When you use the log count method, uh the log count method, doing this now will show you this control has come down again. I go beat this thing. Okay, there is actually a shortcut. uh Up option, is it up, sorry, control option command H. That's a lot. I will just be doing it like this. So
That make no shortcut.
yeah, when you log this out, you will see how you see total messages one. You see?
Yes, because now you're now because now you're using both the log and the log count methods.
Yes.
You're outputting two of them.
See,
You're running two of them.
let's say I go ahead
Now
and
they'll be three.
let me go ahead and no, the log count doesn't concern. The log count is showing how many. Look at the log count is
Oh,
showing the length, how many quotes we have in total, how many quotes we have, the total quotes we have. It's not
yeah,
showing.
that's what I was saying. It tells you the number.
Is yeah, how many quotes we have. It's showing one now because it's just one quote I've sent in. Let me go ahead.
Yeah.
Let me go ahead and add another one. Delay is not denial. When you do this, you will see your quote, it will log out again. Your quote delay is not denial. The first one was your quote, because remember that what this thing does, it pushes it in, then it shows you what you wrote. So for this guy now, there are no regrets, only lessons. It has pushed it in and it showed you your quote, there are no regrets, only lessons. For the second guy, delay is not denial. It shows you your quote, delay is not denial. Now the total messages that you have pushed in, that's what this log count does. It checks the total messages. The total messages you've pushed in so far are 2. Total quote, this guy and this guy. That's just how all these methods, that's how these 2 methods work. And uh what I want to do now is I want to show you the reason why I'm taking my time to explain this one is because when I show you the module, I'm just kind of showing you, proving the singleton thing, where you see that you only instantiate only one of this guy, and every single time that you use it is going to give you the same thing. Every single time, being
Yeah.
in the real world, when apps and websites are built, it doesn't have one file. You might have like 10 JS files in one repository, like different files. We call them modules. It's called modular pattern, which I'll still explain. That one is like the easiest. Module is just like having different files and then linking all of them so that they can all use whatever variable they need from each other. They can use it, like something like this, for example.
Yeah, like having a math file
Yes,
where
like,
you just math.
yeah, like this. If this was your configuration, now you run it through all your modules, so all your files will have this configuration to use it. So
Yeah.
what I'm going to do now is move to the module guy. See the first one. This thing I did now, this thing I showed you is the same class. I just wanted to explain the class, sort of. This is still it. And I froze it here, of course, to stop it from being instantiated. Then I use the modular function. Don't worry about how I did this, but the module thing, this thing, exported it. I exported this class. I exported it to another module to use it.
Okay.
I instantiated it
And
once.
you imported it in that one.
Yeah, I instantiated it only once, just to show you only this once. Then I exported the instantiated this thing to use. Then I froze it so that it won't be.
Yeah.
Then this conditional statement is just saying that if this guy hasn't been instantiated, right? This fancy logger, if this class fancy logger dot instance is like instantiating it, if this hasn't been instantiated,
Yeah.
which is this
If there's
null,
no instance of that.
yes, if there is no
Yes.
instance of it, what I want you to do is immediately create this array first for me. Create this thing first, then turn the instance of the class, turn the instance of the class into this.
Into an object.
Yeah, like into this thing is like sort of like
Isn't that this refers to the object now? But this refers to the object that you make out of the class you're creating.
yes,
If
exactly.
that makes any sense.
Yes. So I hope it makes sense to every other person. I don't know how else I'm going to break this down, because like I'm not like an OOP specialist, but like you're sort of saying just you're sort of saying, if the only condition that will let this thing instantiate, the only condition is if it hasn't been instantiated. So he's saying, okay, if it hasn't been instantiated before, create this array
Instantiating.
and instantiate it with this logger. Like allow this logger to instantiate, allow that one time to instantiate, but don't allow it to instantiate again. That's why if after it has instantiated, when it comes back up now, right? And when it comes back up and sees that, okay, the instantiation, you see how it returned this instant, like after instantiating it instantiated it and returned it. So when it comes back up to run this code again, it is not going to be null anymore. It is now going to be this. And when it sees that, okay, this guy has been instantiated before, it's going to be like, all right, no problem, no problem. That's just what this if statement. For the learnable guy, there was a way he did his own. He did get instance. There was a way he did something like get instance. Wait, let me try it here. I don't know if I remember it correctly, but he did something like of course it's coding. There are different ways. He did get instance and did something like uh how did he even do it again? I think he did something like if, hold on, sorry, what am I doing? Did something like if this dot instance. Wait, let me just quickly check. I beg. I just know there are plenty ways to do it. It all really depends on you, whichever one you choose. There is no wrong way. There is no right way. I should have probably just gone to the design thing because I don't want to start going through all these things again. Let me just go here. Okay. Where is it? Singleton. Uh, Actually, this seems to be the construction, not singleton, which is kind of weird. Singleton. Oh, all right. Okay, see the way he did it. He said, can you guys hear me?
Yes, right on.
Yeah, so he what is going on? This one they mad though. So he's like, if this he created a method to instantiate this thing. Actually, he created a method. This guy wasn't there wasn't any need for a constructor. He just created a method, and the method was like, okay, if not this instance, like in other words, if it hasn't been, this thing just simply still translates to if it hasn't been instantiated, just like how the other one
Yeah.
was. Just like how the other one was like, if fancy logger dot instance is null. This one now is saying if not,
Mm.
he set it to false. In other words, if this instance
Yes.
is false as far it hasn't been done yet, I want you to turn this instance
Mm-hmm.
into new database. Now, the way he did it is he did it that instead of you to start doing this logger under here, he just did the logger thing inside here, so that whenever you now want to instantiate it, then you just use this you just use this what do they call it, this get instance method. Like, it's as if he wraps it in a function. Basically, it's like instead of doing this logger thing here, he just took this new database and created a function that every time you call this function, it will create this thing. Like, imagine a function that whenever you call it, it will do this line for you. That's what he did here.
Yes.
You can see it now.
Okay.
Like, he created a method and it's like, okay, if whenever this thing hasn't been instantiated, I want you to turn its instance
Instantiated.
into, yes, a new database here, and then return that instantiation that I did, which is the same thing I did here. Like, you can see return. After it, you have to return it. And now anytime you want to
Mm.
instantiate this thing anywhere, what you now do is to just do, you can see it here. This is what he now did here, that he wanted to instantiate it. He wanted to create a new instance of it. He did const database is equal to database dot get inside. This is just in my opinion, this is probably like a longer method. In my opinion, just learn whichever one you need to, but this thing is the same thing.
Okay.
This guy that is like sort of short, that makes it easy. Anyway, this guy no too follow for this code. This guy doesn't have, this guy is not permanent to this particular guy. This guy is just for this particular class.
Okay.
You guys get?
Well, I'm following you.
Is anyone is okay? V is even still joining. How far? I know the people
You,
that
you can't hear. You can't hear me.
yeah. Can you? V is still joining. For some reason he wasn't here before. Only, do you hear me?
This is here now.
Can you hear me?
Yeah, I can. I can hear
So
you.
do you understand so far? Like, let's be sure that we're all moving together.
I kind of came in the middle of the class, so we'll carry on.
Hello, I'm back.
Okay. Not an issue, Sha. There's a
Thank you.
video. The first part of the class has a video that was released, so it's not really, it's just 80 MB, so it's not really much. What I'm trying to say is that
Okay.
this guy now is not
Hi, Onye. Hello.
not a
Hello,
Hi,
guys.
Victor.
Okay.
hi everyone.
Yeah.
Yeah. So like I was saying that this particular line here is not something permanent. Like when you're doing a singleton pattern, right? This guy should not, for people who would rather memorize it, this guy is not one of it. Or this guy is just for this logger class. Like it's just what you use to instantiate this log. It's part of what you put in this logger class.
Okay.
You guys understand?
Okay.
I'm saying the main code is here. If whatever class you do, whatever this class is, say you create a class named telephone, for example, like they asked us to, and you want to make it a singleton pattern. You want to make it into a singleton pattern, you could do stuff like if telephone dot instance. You can even do something like this self, just like the learnable guy did. I think it should still work the same way because
If you
no,
don't understand, it's not true.
yeah, it should still work the same way. You can now do fancy logger dot instance is equal to this. If you notice, you see something similar in the code. How the guy used this too, it just like kind of counter changed it, just like switched everything up, and then you can now do return, return.
And instead of writing this, he just actually made the new object, new database.
Yes. So it's just, I'm telling you, this is what I'm saying. This is the main code. This is the main, this additional thing up here is just for this particular class because we use it in this particular class. You get, so it's saying, okay, create the constructor with this guy, like create it with this guy. But normally you don't have to. This could be anything. Let's say in this telephone, you wanted to create telephone, phone, maybe a phone book or something like that. This would probably be something like this dot phone book is equal to this. You guys get?
Yes.
So I'm just saying that like that part, that's not part of the code. Anyway, that's by the way. So after this side, let's now go to the module thingy. I don't know if I should go, if I don't know if I should go through modules or leave it for like when we are done with this, because you'll be seeing it a lot. But we exported anyway, we created this class, we created it, gave it this conditional statement to make sure that there will always be an instance of it, like it to be created. Because if you don't do this, it's possible that maybe the class itself will not be instantiated in the first place. So you do this and you instantiate the class and make sure it's instantiated just once. Then you freeze it to be sure, yeah, nobody is doing anything. They can't add any property, nothing. They can't add anything to it. Then you export it. You can see I exported this instance of it. Then in the next file, I imported that exported instance. Is called is modular distance. That's how it works. I imported what I exported from the other file. This line is the modular part. When I go through modular distance, you understand this part. Then I created a function here on the second distance. This is another JavaScript. This is another script, like another script altogether, but they are all,
JS file.
yes, they are all like, let's say they are all one app, one application, just another one. So I created a function that will use this instance. As you can see, it used this instance. It used all the methods in this instance because I exported this class. Because I exported the instance of this class, every single thing that came with this class followed it to come here. So you can see it, I can use it. Anything I want, I can do here with this class, with this object from the class.
Basically, it's assumed that once you imported it into this place, it's basically here now, and you can do whatever it is you are done in the other one. You can do it here. So.
Yeah, exactly. So I created a function on an entirely different script. Then I created a third script again and created a second function. Function. There's a reason I'm doing all these things. I created a second function using the same thing, but now I made it, I am the second. You can see the first one, I am the first, so that I can know the difference. And then I am the second. And then I now created a last one that is going to run it. This last one now imported the functions, the two functions. It imported this guy and imported this guy from each other. And they're all here. You can see the two functions. I called them, I imported them, and I called them. Now, the result of this is going to interest you. Is the difference between, is what really shows the singleton pattern. Let me see. right here, you can notice something that okay, I should have run it before and after. Let me run it before and after so you guys can see the difference. Let me go ahead and let me remove what makes it a singleton pattern. I shall go ahead and let me remove this for see what happens. Okay, then let me go ahead and remove this and unlock. Let this guy run. Cannot read properties of. Okay, it's reading now. Right? It's reading now. It is reading now.
It's saying it's not saying you can't read at the very least.
Yeah?
It is not saying that you cannot read at the very least.
Yeah.
It's reading.
Yes. There's something I wanted to show, but it's not really showing it the way it this thing stressed me today and it's about to start again. But what I wanted to show you, Sha, was that hold on. Let me see if it's a clearing consulting. No. What I wanted to show you was that what did I want to show? What I wanted to show was that there was a way we would have done it before, right? There was a way we would have done it if we had taken different instances of this. Let's say we didn't export, let's say we didn't create only one instance, right? And let's say we created plenty instances and exported it. For example, let's say we didn't export this guy. Of course, you know, this guy exported this instance of the class, this one instance, we exported it. But let's say we didn't export this one instance and we decided, okay, let's export the class instead, right? Let's export the whole class because we want to create a new instance of the class. This would have been over here would have been clean this line. Over here would have been import
class name.
fancy logger.
Import the class name from
Fancy logger. Yeah. And then this guy would remain the same, but now would have needed to instantiate it again because remember is the whole class that we are bringing. I don't know if you understand.
Yeah, you're bringing the class itself, not
Yeah.
it hasn't been used yet in this file at the very least. So that is, yeah, you have to actually instantiate it.
Then you do the same thing here. You bring import fancy logger again. Then as you brought the class, you have to instantiate the class again. This is of course what would have happened, assuming you decided that you're not going to use a singleton pattern, just to show you the advantage of a singleton pattern and the difference, which is sort of what I really wanted to show you guys. And crap, this thing is definitely looking for ways to stress me now. Let me see. There's something, yeah. This module thing, but when we go into the modular this thing, what I want to show you guys are common things that happens when you export, because this thing really disturbed me today. Crap, my alarm to wake someone up just rang now. Okay, yes, okay, this is what I wanted to show you guys. Good. So this is the non-singleton version of this. If you notice, when these two functions ran, right? Can you guys hear me? This is all a module, by the way. All these things are like they're modulars, but they are running their sort of sync to each other, right? Yet, when the first function blew, when the first function before the first function blew, it first, as you can see from where I made the functions, you can see the function. I first started with counting how many messages are there before I started, like how many messages, show me how many messages are currently in the array. Then add a new message to the array. Then show me how many messages are now there after adding. That's the same thing I did in this function. Show me how many messages are in the array, then add a new message, then show me what is now the current message. Now, because of the lack of single pattern, if you notice here, the first one, show me how many messages are in the array, to show me 0 messages. This was the beginning, the first time I used it. the first time I called the function, 0 messages. Or your first message, it now added, I am the first logger. Now your total message is 1. Now this second time I called it, the total message was supposed to show me 1 because like it's currently 1 message, but instead it started from 0 again and did it all afresh. Why? Because every single time here it was a new instance. You might say, hey, is it not the same logger? It's not the same logger because we didn't import it from that module. We didn't import logger from the module. We didn't import it. We created a new instance every single, like this thing might be the same name on every file, but it's different versions of it, different variants of it because it's a different file. So that's the whole thing. Modular this thing, modular pattern or module pattern imports the instantiated object from the main file.
Itself and not the class.
Yes, that is like how the singleton works. But because it's currently not a singleton, we had to instantiate it every single time. And you can see the problem. Now imagine a case where this is actually a library or a movie renting API or whatever. Like, I don't know how certain this is, but like imagine that type of case and you want to be doing that when someone removes a book. You want it to be that, oh, as they're removing the book, when some user at some other place coded on some other JavaScript file from a different JavaScript file, maybe a different JavaScript file shows the tutors adding books, and another JavaScript file shows the students renting books, and another JavaScript file shows people returning books. All of them have to be in sync, sort of like the total number of books, the this, the this, the that. Imagine a case where it's this messed up or something like that. Like you're going to have issues because like, okay, how many books are there? How can it finish counting and start from 0 again? So that's like sort of the advantage of the singleton pattern, because when you apply the singleton pattern here, you will notice that we're going to, it started again. You will notice that we are going to go ahead and hold on. Applying the singleton pattern, we'll go ahead and remove this. We'll not export the class itself. We don't want that. We'll go ahead and export the instantiation of the class. Then we'll go ahead and do this to prevent any features from being added. Like let nobody add any additional methods or properties. Then we'll go ahead and give this condition to be sure that the class will even be instantiated in the first place, and make sure that if it's not instantiated, it actually ends up being instantiated, which is here. Then, okay. Well, actually, I did it here. I guess I would have just done it. It's still the same thing, Sha. But let me just do it the way we did it before. Then we'll go ahead in the next file and clean this class. We don't want to import the class itself. Like I said, we want to import the instantiation of the class. We don't want to instantiate a new class. It's not necessary. We don't want to do this. We just want to take the single instance that has already been done and use it to do something. So when this is supposed to refresh, you can now see. So do you guys notice now that it has refreshed? It started when you called it the first time. Total message is 0. Your first message, I'm the first logger. Total message is now 1. The second time you called it, it displayed again. Total message is currently 1. Your message, I'm the second logger. Total message is 2. So you can see that it adds up because there's only one instance. So if you like, create 10 modular files and keep doing this and doing this and doing this, it will keep giving you the same thing and the same thing and the same thing. Of course, you can replicate the same effect on a single file. The only thing is that it won't really show you how much, it won't really show you singleton like that when you're using one file, because you know how JavaScript runs. It runs from top to bottom. So if I call a function, I call another function, originally, like naturally, it will just add up like this because it's on the same, what do they call it? It's on the same JavaScript file.
It's one after the other.
Yes. The only way to do this thing using one file would be that you have to instantiate a second guy. Maybe cons logger1 is equal to this, logger2 is, then you now do that method and see how it's just going to be doing 0, 1, 0. It will not be pushing, everything will not be pushing total. Like it will push, but it will probably end up being some other thing. I don't know. But that is my idea of this the singleton pattern. Then the next one is the modular. Do you guys understand modules? Do we really need to go into that? You guys sort of understand it, right? It's easy. If you read it, you understand it. It's actually the easiest. I don't need to go on that, right? I can skip it, yes?
Mod kind of just means when you add things together to make one whole thing. So by definition earlier, we're combining several JS files together to make one thing, to make them all work together as one file, basically. And we use other patterns to make sure that we don't make mistakes when doing that, like a singleton pattern, where you just do the main thing in one place and then you just use it in the other places to start doing it again. Yeah. So you can skip modular.
Okay. Everyone else get that, yeah?
Yeah, you can go ahead.
Okay, so let us go to the factory. Let me see what we need. I'm trying to check the guys that we use for this thing. Okay, we will not use factory actually for our task. We'll just use observer. We use observer. And anyway, sure. So for the factory, imagine you have you want to create employees, right? You have a company and you want to classify your employees. There are employees that their job is to test. There are employees that they're or maybe developers and DevRel. Yeah, there are developers that actually code. Then there are developers that their own is to relate with customers and relate with other developers and relate with other companies, blah 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 blah, stuff like that. I'll just call them testers for this purpose. Uh, Instead of you just creating it blindly, you have to when a person becomes an employee, right? Before they become a developer or tester, they have to become an employee first, and you have to find a way to check it that you have to find a way to um ask the employee, like, okay, what what I don't know how to put it, but like there are certain things let's say you go for an interview and you get a job. There are certain qualities you have to possess for them to say, okay, this guy is a developer, or okay, this guy know the code, and therefore will go put down for or something. So what this factory function just does is that it creates like a way of it's like a function, or is like an object, sort of, let me call it an object. It's like an object that is already created that you can just use to create specific things, specific types of that object. For example, you could create a
The
means of
blueprint.
transport. You could create a means of transport generally, irrespective of whether it's by air, by track, by road, or by water, right? You could have a class called create transport, like generally. Then you can now create other classes that will now be car and this and this, and each of those other classes will now take something from that create transport. In other words, there will be conditions that a certain transport, when you're creating transport, there are conditions that have to be met for you to say, okay, this is definitely air transport. If it flies, it's air transport. If it's if it has wings or whatever, is air transport. If it has tires, rubber tires and stuff, oh, it's road. If it has if it's shaped in a way that it floats on water or whatever, it's definitely water. If it has iron or metal tracks or whatever, oh yeah, it's train. It has to have like conditions that it will meet. But besides all that, it is still a means of transport, but there's now something that differentiates it. So over here, I just used the developer thing to do an example. I created a class for developers, passed the constructor. Of course, you guys already know the constructor pattern. In the constructor, passed name, the person is going to feed their name. And then the type for this, whoever meets this type, the type for this is developer. I can even go ahead and make this very interesting and turn this into this type, but it doesn't really matter. Whatever you decide to do with this thing, it's totally up to you. Whatever you decide is totally up to you. But I also created another class, tester. You could create as many classes really. If this was the transport thing, you would have created car, ship, train, whatever it is, as many as you want. Then you now create transport. This right here. Hold on. Okay, because this meeting is probably going to end anytime soon, so I have to be sure that it hadn't ended yet. We're still here, yeah.
Mhm.
Okay, so
Yeah, right on.
yeah, so this class is the creator. This class creates creates the employee. Basically, when it meets certain conditions, it creates all these employees. It creates developers, testers. It is the one that is going to ask you for whatever. And when you meet certain criteria, they call this the employment board, or the people interviewing you. They will interview you, and when you meet a certain criteria, they are going to push you to the employee listing that you're supposed to be in. That's just what factory patterns are all about. You can see here that we created the class employee factory. You can call this interview employee or human relations or whatever you want to call it, human resources, whatever you want to call it in a company, the people that do interview. Then there is a method called create employee, and this method takes in two arguments: the name of the employee and the type of the employee. Then there is a conditional statement that says, okay, if the employee type is one, in this case, we are using one, but it could be anything really. Maybe to make this more realistic, we could say something like, if the employee is dev, return new developer. And if the employee is dev rel, maybe return new. I can go ahead and change this to dev rel to make it make more sense. Just for it to really sink in. Yeah. So yes, you can say, okay, when this employee is prompted or asked, okay, when they are asked, what's up, what type of employee are you, or when they are interviewed to know their features, if their features or if what they say gives us the results, dev, I want you to create